There is something happening quietly inside the Singapore property market right now that many buyers still completely fail to understand, and it may fundamentally change how wealth gets built over the next decade. Our recent launch, buyers aggressively fought over tiny one-bedroom units, while larger luxury homes in prestigious family districts sat quietly on the sidelines. Not because Singaporeans suddenly hate space, not because luxury property disappeared, but because buyer psychology has changed completely. The old rules that dominated Singapore real estate for decades are no longer operating the same way. For years, the market was relatively straightforward. Bigger homes were safer bets. Prime districts always outperformed. Wealthy buyers wanted more space. Luxury appreciated best. Location, location, location ruled everything. Today, those assumptions are starting to break down fast, and the buyers who still operate based on old market psychology may end up making extremely expensive decisions over the next few years. Because what we are witnessing now is not a temporary fluctuation. It is a structural transformation in how Singapore buyers think about property. The property launch that quietly exposed the entire market. The latest launch weekend revealed something extremely important. Projects like Villa Bay at Bayshore and Tengah Garden Residences delivered very strong sales numbers. Villa Bay achieved roughly 72% sales over a single weekend. Tengah Garden Residences sold more than 99% of its units almost immediately. On the surface, that sounds like a healthy property market. But the real story was hidden inside which units sold first. Traditionally, districts like East Coast and Bayshore attracted affluent, multi-generational families who prioritized space, prestige, long-term family living, large luxury layouts. Under older market conditions, buyers would have rushed toward the biggest premium units first. Instead, buyers aggressively targeted one-bedroom units, compact two-bedroom units, small three-bedroom layouts. The one-bedroom units moved especially fast, despite being priced around $1.25 million to $1.5 million. That sounds irrational at first. Why would buyers pay premium prices for tiny units instead of securing large luxury homes? The answer is simple. Because buyers are no longer buying homes first. They are buying liquidity. Buyers are now thinking about exit strategy before lifestyle. This is one of the biggest psychological shifts happening in Singapore property today. Historically, buyers asked, "Can I imagine living here?" Now, many buyers ask, "Who can I sell this to later?" That single mindset shift changes the entire market. A one-bedroom sea view unit at $1.5 million appeals to young professionals, expats, singles, investors, newly married couples, foreign talent. The future buyer pool is extremely wide. But what happens if you buy a $5 million luxury family apartment? Suddenly, your future buyer pool shrinks dramatically. And sophisticated buyers understand this very clearly. Today's market is not just about whether prices rise. The bigger concern is whether enough qualified buyers will still exist when you eventually need to exit. Liquidity has become one of the most important concepts in Singapore real estate. Many buyers still ignore this. That is dangerous. The real battle is no longer PSF, it is quantum. Many Singaporeans still obsess over price per square foot, but PSF alone no longer tells the full story. The real battle today is quantum, the total purchase price. This is where the market is facing enormous pressure. Emotionally, many buyers still want larger homes, but financially, they are hitting affordability ceilings much faster than before. Why? Because the environment has changed. Interest rates remain elevated. Global uncertainty remains high. Monthly repayments feel psychologically uncomfortable. Buyers fear overstretching themselves. Economic visibility feels weaker than before. Even affluent households are becoming far more cautious. So buyers adapt. Instead of maximizing space, they maximize flexibility. Instead of chasing prestige, they optimize affordability. This explains why the smaller units at Villa Bay moved first. Not because buyers dislike luxury, but because buyers are becoming brutally pragmatic. The Tengah Garden lesson most people completely missed. Tengah Garden Residences revealed another critical insight. Almost every unit sold out quickly, but the remaining unsold units told the real story. The largest four-bedroom premium layouts, around 1,259 square feet, and priced around $2.7 million to $2.8 million, struggled to move. Meanwhile, Slightly smaller 4-bedroom units, around 1,141 square feet, sold rapidly. Why? Because today's mass market upgraders care far more about functionality than oversized luxury. This is a massive shift. Modern buyers increasingly prioritize bedroom count, functional layouts, utility, flexibility, manageable quantum space, efficiency. They no longer want oversized living rooms if it pushes them into dangerous price categories. The emotional desire for spacious luxury is slowly losing to financial discipline. And this changes how developers, investors, and sellers must think moving forward. Dead space is becoming financially dangerous. This is the brutal reality many buyers still refuse to accept. Large luxury units can become liquidity traps. If you buy a suburban 4-bedroom unit at $2.8 million today, your future resale buyer may need to pay $3.4 million, $3.5 million, or even more later. Now ask yourself honestly, will there still be enough buyers willing to pay that quantum in the future? That uncertainty is becoming a major psychological concern, and the market is increasingly punishing inefficient layouts. Interestingly, many analysts believe those unsold large Tunga garden units would likely have sold out immediately if developers had simply redesigned them into 5-bedroom layouts instead. Not because families suddenly became larger, but because every room now needs a purpose. Today's buyers want home offices, study rooms, helpers' rooms, flexible spaces, future children's rooms. Modern buyers hate dead space. Every square foot must justify itself financially. That changes everything. Location is quietly losing its absolute dominance. For decades, Singapore property revolved around one core belief: prime districts always win. But decentralization is quietly disrupting that assumption. Singapore's suburban townships are no longer secondary locations. They are evolving into self-sufficient ecosystems. Modern suburban districts now offer MRT connectivity, shopping malls, medical hubs, commercial offices, schools, lifestyle amenities, parks and recreation. As a result, buyers increasingly ask, why am I paying double just to live downtown? The historical price gap between the outside central region, OCR, and core central region, CCR, has narrowed significantly. That is not random. It reflects a deeper structural shift in buyer behavior. Convenience is decentralizing, and once convenience decentralizes, the traditional definition of prime begins changing. Smart buyers are quietly buying before infrastructure arrives. This is where sophisticated buyers separate themselves from emotional buyers. Experienced investors understand a simple principle: infrastructure creates appreciation. They intentionally buy into locations that still feel ulu today, because they understand what future MRT lines, malls, and commercial developments will eventually do to prices. The appreciation often begins before infrastructure fully completes. This is delayed gratification investing, and Singapore's urban planning system makes this strategy incredibly powerful. Smart buyers are effectively arbitraging time. They enter before the broader market fully prices in future transformation. That is strategy, not emotion. Young buyers are quietly reshaping the entire market. One of the most underestimated trends in Singapore today is demographic change. The property market is no longer driven only by older generations. Young buyers are entering aggressively. Buyers under 35 are becoming increasingly active. Singles are also becoming a major force. And this changes demand patterns significantly. Smaller households naturally prioritize compact layouts, lower quantums, convenience, flexibility, investment potential, rather than massive family compounds. What is especially interesting is how differently younger buyers think today. Many treat property similarly to equities or crypto. They study liquidity, yield, appreciation potential, exit timing, future demand. They approach real estate strategically instead of emotionally. But there is another hidden force behind this trend. The bank of mom and dad is quietly fueling the market. This is one of the least discussed realities in Singapore property today. Many younger buyers simply could not enter the market alone. Intergenerational wealth transfer is quietly becoming one of the largest forces supporting property prices. Parents who benefited enormously from earlier housing cycles are now helping children fund down payments. This creates huge advantages for younger buyers with family support. It also reshapes affordability dynamics across the market. Some buyers are even pooling resources with siblings or friends to enter the market together. The traditional definition of property ownership is evolving rapidly, and this will likely continue over the next decade. The biggest mistake buyers still make. Many buyers still purchase emotionally. They assume bigger always appreciates better. That assumption is becoming increasingly dangerous. Today's market rewards efficient layouts, strong liquidity, manageable quantums, flexible future demand, infrastructure growth potential, strategic entry timing, not unnecessary luxury. Luxury property itself is not dead, far from it. But luxury without liquidity becomes risky during uncertain economic periods, and buyers are becoming far more aware of this. Singapore property has entered a completely new era. The winners moving forward may not necessarily be the people with the largest budgets. They may simply be the buyers with the clearest strategy. The people who understand human psychology, urban planning, liquidity, future demographics, infrastructure timing, exit planning, quantum management. Because the market is no longer rewarding blind optimism, it is rewarding precision. And that changes the game entirely. Here is the real question every Singapore buyer should think seriously about moving forward. If decentralization continues successfully and every township eventually becomes fully connected, convenient, and self-sufficient, will the concept of a prime district eventually disappear altogether? Because if every location becomes desirable, then future property winners may no longer be determined by postal code. They may be determined entirely by strategy. If you are planning to buy, sell, upgrade, or restructure your property portfolio in Singapore, this is not the type of market where emotional decisions should be made blindly. The rules are evolving rapidly. A strong property decision today could create enormous flexibility and wealth over the next decade. A poor one could quietly trap you financially for years. If you want help understanding which projects may have stronger future resale liquidity, which layouts avoid future liquidity traps, how to evaluate quantum risk properly, which areas may benefit from future infrastructure growth, whether new launch or resale makes more sense for your situation, how to structure a smarter long-term property strategy. Feel free to connect with me for a one-to-one property discussion. The buyers who prepare early usually make the strongest long-term decisions.